Hi everyone, I want to welcome you to this YouTube channel. This is Pastor Anna, my YouTube channel, and I want to take my time just to welcome you. If you're here for the first time, please take your time to subscribe and also tap the notification bell that is right on your screen so that anytime I upload a video, you are not going to be left out, but you are going to get it and it can be able to bless you. And for you who has already subscribed, I also want to take a second and just say thank you for that, for your subscription. By so doing, you are supporting the work that God has called me to do, the work of ministry. You may not be able to support me in many other ways, but just by your subscription and by your following, your viewing, that is a support to the work of the kingdom. May God support your own issues, and I speak a blessing unto you. So for the new person here, may God bless you for taking your time even to be able to watch this video. So today, I want to carry on with the topic that I talked about in my last video. If you have not watched the video that I uploaded lately, or the last one, the very last one that I uploaded, please just go back to that video and just watch it so that you may be able to understand where we are coming from and where we are today. Last time I talked about the red flags that I ignored and got into a relationship that turned sour. Yes, that ended painfully. And I said that today I'm going to carry on with that message, with that testimony, and I will be speaking about how I got into that marriage that was actually fake, and some of the things that I experienced, and even how God delivered me out of it after much suffering, and how I just got out of it by the grace of God. So, why do I talk all these things to you? I want to sharpen you. I want to enlighten you. I want to put knowledge and a wisdom in you. I want to advise you. I want to counsel you. And if you are in a marriage that maybe it's already working, then you can also take this message and help someone else with it, because nowadays many of relationships are not good. So we have people that are already in bad relationships maritally. We have people that are dating, and some of them can already see the red flags. Some of them don't know whether to continue, if the red flags are saying anything, or whether just to ignore and maybe hope that things are going to work out ahead as they continue with the relationship. I just want to say, mostly, when you see red flags in the initial stages, mostly that relationship is not going to work, even when you get into marriage. If you have watched my previous video, you understand what I'm talking about. If you have not watched, just go to my last video of how I ignored the red flags and how everything ended painfully, how the relationship ended painfully. So that is the reason why I'm bringing you this message. So, carrying on from where I left, I promised and I said that when I come, maybe one of these fine days and the days today, I'm going to talk about how I got into that relationship. And last time I said, because I ignored so many relationships, is it that I was so much in love? Somebody could maybe think that I was so much in love because people say that love is blind. You know, when you are too much in love, you don't see mistakes in your partner. You just ignore everything and you just hope that things will be well, maybe as you move on. So I would want to say, and just as I had said last time, I was not really in love with this man. And how did I just come to connect myself with him? How did I just attach myself to him? So this is how it happened. And this is why I usually say, be very careful about where you go to church, and also who prays for you, maybe in your time of need. I got this man through a prayer that was made for me in a church that I was attending right here in the city center in Nairobi. And even as we talk, the mega church is still there. And the preacher there, who is an apostle in quotes, is still having a lot of scandals. And that now opened my eyes later to know that he was not a true man of God because of his character and also because of what he preaches. And in one of my videos, I have asked, how do you expect a person who's not having God to pray for you and you have godly things and blessings from the prayer? It does not happen because he will only offer what he has. He has no God. He's operating with some funny powers of darkness. By the way, that man, he used to operate that way, and I did not know. Why? Because I was very young spiritually. I was not enlightened spiritually. I had not been taught about the true doctrine to follow, the doctrine of Christ. I had not been well fed spiritually, though for quite some years I had been born again. But it is one thing getting born again and also growing spiritually. So I had not grown spiritually. So I just used to follow any person who calls themselves a man of God, and especially if they have a church, I could just visit. So I was in this particular church in the city center of Nairobi, and I went for a lunch hour meeting. No, it was not a lunch hour. It was an evening service. As I was used to attending his evening services. Actually, every day I could be in church. Like in the evening, I could always be there. So I was there. And this man called me through what he said that it was the leading of God. And he just pointed out. He just pointed me out of many other people. And he said, you just come here. And I went. And you went like, you are not married. And I can see you are bound not to get married. And he said, I'm going to pray for you because I want to call the husband, or rather your husband, for you in the spirit. I'm going to call him for you. And he's going to come. So he was summoning a man in the spirit for me. And one thing I should make clear is that I had not told this man, the fake preacher, that I needed a husband. By the way, if there is one thing I was not desperate for, I was not desperate to get married. I had so many proposals all along. I had many brothers who had come to me and they were asking for my hand in marriage, but I was still taking my time. You know, I had seen how people get into marriages and how they had failed, and I was afraid. I just wanted to make sure that mine is going to be, you know, a smooth journey before marriage and after marriage. No breakage, no divorce. And I had also prayed and told God, I want a man of God, a fellow minister of the gospel like me. So I was still waiting to see such a man. And so this preacher calls me in front and he says that he wants to summon my husband through prayer. And I was there, he prayed for me. And he asked me about my ears. I told him. And so he started to pray, calling the man. I've told you that spiritually, I was not as sharp as I became later. I was still immature. There was also some blindness, spiritual blindness. I had not really been taught the things of God and how they operate, and also how the gifts of God operate. So I could not differentiate. I could not see that there was something fishy with this man. And so he prayed for me. And so shortly, I met this man, the one now that I got into a relationship with. I met him. I was invited for a conference somewhere. I was going to minister. He was also invited. And so we met there. Well, I had seen him, I think, 2 more times earlier. in a pastor's fellowship somewhere in the city center. And there's something that I had not liked about him, because when I saw him in the pastor's fellowship, as I explained in the last video, there were some things that were just a put off for me. So there was nothing attractive to me about him. So there was no attraction. There was actually no love. But now, as we got closer and he proposed, I had always remembered the prayer of that man that I thought he was a man of God, yet he was not a man of God. His scandals tell that he's not a man of God. The things that he preaches and teaches tell that he's of another doctrine and using some funny powers to brainwash people. In fact, he brainwashed me. And after that, I was not able to reason for myself. I was not able to think for myself. So whatever this man said to me, it was just a yes to me. I just accepted the proposal. I ignored some things that I had even seen him, do in the pastor's fellowship before. Even some things that he was also doing in that conference, the conference now where we were both ministering in different sessions, there were things that he was doing and they were just a no for me. But that prayer of that preacher, it tied me in a way. It brainwashed me. It just made me think that this must be the one, since an anointed man of God prayed. I don't even need to ask God further about him. I trusted that man who made the prayer so much because I thought he was a true man of God. He has a mega church with thousands of people, especially those days. Nowadays, people have come to know him, so they have run away, most of them. But he's still operating and he's still having a church actually with a big number. So there was no way I was doubting. And I said yes to this man. And so the journey started. We started arranging on how to go and see the parents from both sides. He took me to his parents, and they were happy to see me and to his people. He could still behave strangely, but to me, I was like, the man of God prayed, and so he must be the one. No reasoning anymore. Ignoring the red flags. I talked about some of those red flags in my previous video. Just go and watch. And so, the week that I was supposed to go and introduce him to my family, one of those nights, God showed me a dream. And I said in my previous video that I usually know when a dream is from God, when a dream is from self, and when a dream is from the enemy. Because I said there are three sources of dreams. One can have a dream for God, and that one is usually very, very clear with no confusion, and it sticks in someone's spirit. It's very clear, no doubt about it. Everything is very clear. And there is also another source of dreams. You can dream from your own mind because maybe you are thinking too much about something, or maybe because you had a certain experience during the day, and so when you go to bed, it comes back and it replays. And you can also have a dream also from the enemy. Yeah, the devil is a liar. So he confuses people with the dreams. And unless you really know that it is God who's speaking to you, at times you are going to take a dream from the devil, a dream from self, and you just believe in it and you follow it. And that's how many people mess up things. So for this dream, I knew it was a dream from God, and I explained it in my last video. I said this dream came like this. I saw that I was somewhere with this man that now I was engaged to, and we were together somewhere. Then at some point, I saw that he was taken away, and I was left alone. According to me, because of spiritual immaturity those days, I thought that God was telling me, this man will die maybe after we get married. Because I had kind of completely been convinced in my heart that the man of God prayed and this man is from God. So I thought that God now was telling me, pray against the spirit of death because this man is going to leave you. He will not live long. He will be attacked by the spirit of death. And so that is what I embarked on, praying against the spirit of death. That is what I was dealing with. So if I had been wise enough spiritually and mature enough spiritually, I would have asked God in prayer. I would have taken time to pray. And I would have asked God, what exactly are you saying about this? Or maybe if I had a better and a more dependable spiritual guide, like a man of God or a woman of God who's more mature in the things of spirit beyond me, I would have gone and consulted them. And I would have been guided and I would have been told, no, there's a problem here. God says, just stop this plan and take your time. And anyway, there was no rebellion in my heart. I would have obeyed. But because of that confusion that came with that prayer, I just took the wrong direction. And I started praying against the Spirit of God. That is why I usually say, I don't even blame this man. I blame myself. It was my mistake. Why? Because I did not take a step even when God wanted me to get deeper in prayer and ask God, what are you exactly saying, God? I did not even go to a higher spiritual guide those days, even to consult and say, this is what I saw in a dream. Would you just help me to get to know what God is saying? I did not do this. Anyway, I had already been brainwashed by uh, uh, by a fake preacher with a prayer. And so I ignored the dream and we continued. I took him to my family and we started the plans for the wedding. We did not have money. I told you the man was not working. The man did not have a business. The man was unwilling to work. But at least he had his two brothers who are doing well financially, who are supporting him. Not so much, but just with some little money. And so, when I asked him about working, he said, I know what I'm planning, so don't ask me about working. And so, I left him alone for that moment. There was no money to plan for the wedding. We were not planning to do a big wedding because of also finances and all that. But as pastors, at least we needed to do at least just a wedding, even if it's a simple one. Now, see another red flag here. This man does not have money for the wedding. So where was the money coming from? Or where was the money to come from? I would surprise you to tell you that the man was just a man of by faith, and I said in the previous video. And this man was there just telling me, let us pray, let us fast, and God will just provide money. So it was like a few days now to the wedding, there was no money. We had called friends. Himself, he did not have many friends. He just had, I don't know how many, 2, 3 friends coming. His relatives were not involved in the wedding plans. They were not active. They were not contributing money. So do you see the red flags now? Everything is like it was on me. And I'm not seeing anything wrong with that as a woman. You know, this thing of being over spiritual, brothers and sisters in Christ, please be very careful. Don't be over spiritual. So myself, I took it upon myself and I said, well, I'm going to help the man of God and I'm also going to carry the burden. Let me see how we can be able to get money. And so I contacted a friend I had in the US those days. There was a missionary that I had met in Kenya. I had been invited to minister somewhere in a conference. He had also been invited, and we met and we exchanged addresses and contacts. And so I had informed him that I was getting married, and he was happy about that. And so he asked me, I told him, now we don't have money for the wedding, and we are just like almost 1 week to the wedding day. And so he asked me, how much money do you need for your wedding? I told him, and the man sent money. And so that is how our wedding came to happen. That is how the budget was met. Now, after the wedding, what next? Remember I said in the previous video that this man did not have a house. He did not have a place. He did not have a place to stay in. So on the wedding day, he was still staying in his parents' house somewhere in Nairobi. Where was he to take his bride? He also did not have money also to rent a house. So everything to him was all by faith, by faith, by faith. And that's why I cautioned you and I said, please, as much as you are born again, as much as you are believing in God, this thing of everything by faith. How are we going to pay the bills? By faith. How are we going to do the wedding? It's by faith. How shall we be eating? It's by faith. How are we going to be meeting our budgets and our bills? It's by faith. I'm not limiting God. I'm a pastor. I know that God comes miraculously and God works miraculously, but we cannot just be by faith people about everything. We also have to be practical. We mix faith with also action. So there was no action with this man. And so I have done one big part. I have tackled it. Money has come, but from my side through a friend of mine, this missionary. And now we are already married. The honeymoon is 3 days. We are out of the honeymoon. So where are we going? Because we need to go to a house somewhere. And I asked him about that. So there were no many gifts that we were given during the wedding day. And there were no finances that we were given, no such big gifts. So even the money that we were given, it was little money. And even the honeymoon, we did it in a very, simple way. Just a simple hotel somewhere, no enjoyment, 3 days, and we said, let us go home. But where was home? Where was the house where we were to go to? So that was the question now. The little money that was remaining, it was just some little money maybe to buy us food for just the next few days. And then from there, we start surviving. We start walking by faith. Then, those days, I had rented a small house somewhere, just a single room somewhere. That is where I was staying in Eastlands. For those people who know Nairobi, I was staying in Kayole for a short time, for some months, as we prepared for the wedding. And so, my small house, that was to be the place to go to. And so we moved in. So can you see here now, another red flag? It's like I'm marrying myself. The money for the wedding has come from my friend, from my side. Even many of the wedding plans, it's me who was handling them together with my friends, running up and down. For me, I was like, well, he's a man of God, he's a pastor. So a pastor is also to be supported and to be helped, especially when I become the pastor's wife. So I have to bear the burden together with him. So if he's not there, let me put on his shoes. That was my mentality those days. Some ignorance somewhere. And also, I think some brainwashing that took place after the prayer by this fake preacher. And so we started life there in Kayole, in my small house. Well, we could not stay there for long because the house was not really good. And the two brothers to my man then, they could support him financially, but in a small way. So they paid for our rent for some months. And they moved us out of that small single room. They took us to a bed sitter somewhere between Kayole and the Comaroks. So it was a big bed sitter. And we moved in there. So this man was not working. So even the little money that the brothers were giving, it was for paying rent. And maybe we could just buy food for less than a week. And throughout all the other days, it was survival. But for myself, I was doing a small business. Remember I said, I think in the last video I mentioned and I said, even as I was preaching, even as I was doing ministry, I was also doing business, but I did not have a shop. So I could just carry my items from house to house and sell to friends and sell to strangers out there, from shop to shop, from house to house. That is called hawking. So I could just hawk my items, but at least I was not idle. I was making some little money. So life continued like that. In marriage, this man is not working. So every time I talk to him about working, he's telling me, you know, I'm called as a servant of God and I'm not supposed to do any other work. Now, can you see now trouble? I put myself in trouble. That's why I told you, please be very careful. Do your calculations well. Know the partner that you are going to get married to. Know them well. So I had not seen all this. We are already in marriage. And now this man is telling me, I cannot work. I'm only called to do the work of God. And there was no much ministry work on his side. So what he could do, he could just wake up and pray. So at the end of the day, there is no food in the house. And for myself, I could go and hawk my items, and the little money that I come with, we could buy food with it. It continued like that for about 4 months. And then I realized that I was expectant. And you know, with the changes in the body and all that, I was uncomfortable. I was really feeling bad now, walking all over, selling items. And something came to my mind and I said, why should I be doing all this while this man is just praying throughout the day? And I said, no, even me, I'm not going to hawk items anymore. We are both going to stay in the house. And I'm telling you, my friend, that is when trouble really started. You see how we make mistakes and the consequences to our choices? I ignored the red flags. And I usually want people with my own story. I usually educate people with my own life story so that you don't go down the same road. I think I paid a price for someone else so that if you hear this, you can be able to gain some wisdom and you can be able to see some of these pitfalls before you get into them. So we were both in the house, and I'm telling you, it was a season of hunger. I'm expectant. We are not having food, and we really went through a period of hunger. And because I was still convinced that God would still see us through, and I was thinking that the marriage was still in the will of God, I was still patient with this man. And I can remember how I could carry him. In the morning, I could just ask him, let us go to my friend's house and we just pretend that we are going to visit and maybe we are going to get some meal or even a cup of tea with something to go with it there. And that is how life was. Many times I could sleep hungry together with my baby in the home. She was also subjected to that. I have one daughter that I love so much, my girl, who's called Jewel. Actually, I gave her the name Jewel because of the sufferings that we went through. I thank God because of my grandma. My grandma really helped us during that time. She never knew what was happening, but in a dream I could see, God could show me that I'm getting some package from my grandma, and it could not take a week before somebody called from up country or before my grandma called from up country. And she could tell me, I have sent this cargo for you, this luggage for you. Just tell your husband to go to the city center and get it from this point. And he could just go and come back with a big sack full of, foodstuffs. And we could again survive like that. Now, another amazing thing, there was no money for me to attend even the prenatal clinics. Even if it was a city council hospital, whereby I only needed to pay 20 shillings Kenya money. That is a very small fraction of $1. 20 shillings Kenya money. It is a very small fraction of $1, of $1. Just a small fraction. But I could not afford. There was no money. And so I was not even attending the prenatal clinics. It was at the 7th month that God just helped in a way. And I got 20 shillings. And I was able to go to, or rather to visit a prenatal clinic somewhere in Kayole. And that is when they were able to examine the pregnancy. And thank God everything was found to be okay. But I can tell you, I can assure you, I went through a lot, especially hunger. I went through a lot during that pregnancy. And the man was just there telling me, God will come through, God will come through. God will provide. Now time came, and it was time for me to go and deliver my baby. Where was money coming from? In Kenya, there is nothing for free. So even to get a baby, to deliver a baby, you pay. And so I was there. I was going to the maternity. And there were no funds. I thank God because at least we were able to talk to relatives. He talked to his two brothers. And I was also able to talk to my brother, the one who follows me. That time I had tried to bring my brother close to me. If you listen to my testimony, maybe on other platforms, I have talked about how I went through child abuse and how my mom separated me from the other siblings and taught them that I do not belong to that family. So there has always been that distance. But now at that point, when I got married, I looked for ways to bring my siblings closer. And I had tried to bring my brother closer to me. And I called him. I told him about the situation. And he also sent me some little money. I'm grateful for that my brother chipped in. So that is how we were able to meet the maternity fee. We paid for delivery. And I want to thank God because I got my baby girl. And now he was supposed to come and collect me to pick me up from the hospital, and we go home. He was to pay even for the taxi. He did not have money for that. So God had to use a relative of mine, an aunt that I was somehow close to. So she sent a cab and we were transported home. Now going home, there was no food. And again, the owner of the house, or rather the landlady, had already given us a notice to shift. And now the delivery came when we were still occupying her house. We had not left. And she was so merciless and very ruthless. And so when she saw me with a baby, she said, I told you that I don't accommodate families here. Now you have a baby, you have delivered, and you have come here with your baby. I have to throw you out. And I'm telling you, true to her words, 2 days after I went back to the house from the maternity ward, that woman, she threatened to throw us out. And actually, she was very serious. So the second day she said, I'm giving you people up to noon so that you clear out of my house. If not, I'm coming with a gang of some young people and it won't be nice for you. They are going to throw out your items and there could also be stealing. They are going to carry away your items, your household items. Well, we still trusted in God. You know, the faith. At times that faith, I think, by God's mercies, it could work. And I can remember that morning when we were both confused and we were both stressed up. A friend of ours called Fidelis just visited us. And she found me hungry in the bed without food. Can you see the consequences of ignoring the red flags? And I was there with a baby. Thank God. There is a way how God had helped her. And she had carried, I think, some food stuff that we could cook. And she cooked for us together with her sister. I think that she had come with her sister. And at least I had some, we ate, we had a meal. And at least I felt strong. Now the issue is, we were supposed to leave that house. And at that point, we had already talked to the landlady, pleading with her, telling her, please just give us until evening so that we may know where to go. We had no idea where to move to. We did not have money to rent any house. So this friend of ours, this friend of mine, Fidelis, may God bless Fidelis. So she listened to me and she told me there's no problem. I have a big house and a big compound in Comarox. So we are going to call for a pickup. A pickup is, you know, those spacious vehicles that we use for transportation. If you are moving from place to place and you have a lot of items not to be transported, you can use a pickup, if not a lorry or something. So we called a pickup. Who even paid for the pickup? I cannot even remember. I think we called one of our relatives and the money was sent. And that is how we got out of that house. And we went now to Fidelis' house and she accommodated me. But now there's something she said. She said, I cannot accommodate all of you. So she told the man, I'm going to accommodate my friend here together with her baby. But for you, you have to go back to where you used to stay before you married her. It was not far. It was just within the same, you know, locality. And so it was agreed upon. I thank God for 3 weeks. We stayed with my friend Fidelis. And after that, God provided money and we got a house somewhere and we moved in. And life continued there. This man is not able to pay rent. He's still depending on his brothers. At some point, the brothers felt, no, enough is enough. And they couldn't, pay for our rent anymore. So, what happened? We were thrown out of the house. What were we to do? We were out in the cold with a baby. And so, I just thought, and I told him, why don't we call your dad? And I just ask him if we can go and stay in that house, your family house where you used to stay before we wedded. In that house, it was just a 1-bedroom house. It was not spacious, though it has a compound. And in it, there were 2 elder sisters to this man. And it looked like it was almost impossible. Because just before the wedding, the father told him, you are the man and you are the one to move out of that house and you leave your 2 sisters there. But now I told him, please, just talk to your father so that we may just go and stay there. And please convince him. Tell him we are not going to take so long there. Tell him we are just going to be there for some time. And once we establish ourselves, soon as possible, we are going to leave the house. And I want to thank God because by the mercies of God, the dad listened to us and he agreed. And so I cannot even remember once again how we got money. I think he called the brothers and God touched the two brothers. They contributed money and we were transported together with our items from that part of Eastlands in Nairobi now to the house, the family house. Now, that was another beginning of another terrible life. That time, my baby had grown. She was like, I think 1 year and almost going to 2 years. 1 year, about 9 months there. And so we went there. And we now became a big family. We, together with our baby, and the two sisters. Now, the two sisters were very hostile to me. So they kept on chasing me out. They kept on locking the gate and throwing all my items and my possessions out, and they could tell me, you just go to wherever you will go, and we just don't want you here. You have interfered with our privacy, and I'm telling you, it was a hell. I don't want to talk much about what those two ladies did to me. One of them was not bad. She was kind of good-hearted, but one of them was terrible. She took me through hell. And later now, she incited also the two parents. And the dad now changed his mind and he said, I don't want you people in that house. I just want you to move out of that house and get your own house. Now, where were we to go? The man was still not working. By that time, the marriage, it was kind of now a nasty thing because I'm trying to push him to work and he's refusing. But finally, I pushed him and I got him into a business that I was also doing. Yeah, all this time, I was doing ministry. Even after getting a baby, I continued with ministry and I went back to business. So I told the man, no. Together with your faith now, at this point, you are going to work. And everything was like an impossibility for him. Everything was like a mountain. That is why I told you, again, I also ignored another big red flag that we were two different personalities and we couldn't just get along. We were very incompatible. So he's seeing this, I'm seeing that. He's seeing mountains and mountains. Everything that I suggested to him that we do together for our own financial growth, it was just a mountain to him. It was just an impossibility, though he was a man of faith. But on the other hand, for me, I'm a person of possibilities until today. I said in my last video, I usually go for what I see with my spiritual eyes. If I pray about something and I feel a breakthrough to do it, I go for it physically. And it works. It prospers. So I don't believe in mountains in my life. Especially if I know that God is in whatever I'm doing. That's how I bring down mountains in my life. There is no way you are going to get a smooth life without challenges. But if you just agree with every challenge, then you are going to live a defeated life. And so this man was just like that. I remember one time, oh my, even before then, our child now had grown. And she was to go to school. And because I knew this man, that he had nothing that he had saved, I can remember I looked for a school for my baby, for my kid. I bought the uniforms, I bought everything that was needed, the school uniforms, the school shoes, a school bag, and everything that was needed, including the books I bought. But also on the day that I was taking my child to school to be enrolled, I asked the man, now, what do you have? Now, you have been knowing that our kid is supposed to be going to school. Now, where is the money that you have saved, at least even for school fees? And the man could just look down and he could say, I have nothing. And in Kiswahili, in Islam they speak shame. So he could say, mimi sina kiwanwan, meaning I don't have a single coin. Now, tell me, sister, tell me, woman, if your man has nothing, na hana kiwanwan, that is Kiswahili and it's shame language. Yeah? If he has nothing, you as a woman, where are you going to get kiwanwan from? Where are you going to get money from? Men, can you also just think about that? I said in the other video that we have men nowadays who want to depend on women. We have men that want to be carried on the backs of women, to ride on them. Women, especially in Kenya, especially in Nairobi, and not just in Nairobi, in many parts of Kenya, especially men from a certain community I don't want to mention, they have that habit. They are hands off nowadays. They want the woman to pay the school fees for the children, to buy food, to pay rent, and mostly they are going to say, there are no jobs, so I'm still looking for a job. At times, a man is just going to be there struggling with a small business. If you see that it's not working, why don't you just close it down? Close it. And discuss with your wife, what else can you do? Because even me, their business, I tried those days when I was doing business a lot. And if it's not really doing well, I just shut it down. And I go for something else and it works. But nowadays, our men are lazy. Some of them, they are drunkards, they are alcoholics. Some of them are humanizers. Yes, they have jobs, they have businesses, they are making money. But they want to escape and to get rid of that responsibility of bringing up their children. And that is how we are ending up with so many single families, single mothers, educating and bringing up their children. Men, please, you cannot be a man enough, and that woman cannot respect you when you treat her that way. You have to be a man. To be a man is not to just to be masculine and just to be a male, maybe by how God has made you, by the physical appearance. That is not what it is to be a man. To be a man, you have to take responsibility over your family. Let your woman also enjoy to be a woman. I'm not saying that she should also be hands-off when it comes to paying the bills. She should also chip in. But she should not be like the one that is leading the family financially, the provider, the one paying the bills, the breadwinner. While you are doing so little, that marriage cannot work. It cannot work like that. So I really tried. This man, I tried to push him. And I'm telling you, even when we relocated and we moved from that part of Eastlands and we moved to their own house, we had now another experience of sleeping hungry. Remember now that was a new location for me, a new place for me. I don't know anyone. I did not have any business there. So I had to start thinking of now what business can I do in this area. And even when you start a business, before it peaks, it takes time. And I'm telling you, we had days of sleeping hungry and going hungry. I fought so hard so that our kid could not sleep hungry. I really fought. I can remember there is a time when we just moved to that area. I thought of how we could at least be getting food for our kid. And I realized that people were waking up early in the morning and they were moving on the road. Some people, jobless people, mostly young men or desperate men, they could go collecting plastic bottles, put them in a bag or in a sack, and there was a place where they could take them and they could sell them for some little money. And so I told this man, please, myself, I will be waking up very early in the morning before anyone sees me. Nobody knew that I was a pastor in that region, so I was not afraid. So I said, I told him, I will be waking up early in the morning and I will be moving around with a sack. I collect some plastics and some plastic bottles, and you, because it's you who knows where to go and sell them, your work will be just be taking them to that particular place. And according to how many kgs they are weighed, and you come back with a few coins. And we survived like that for some time, you can imagine. Yeah. Just at least to put some little food on the table, at least for the child. For myself, I could persevere as an adult. So what am I saying in all this? When you ignore the red flags and my painful journey in that marriage, well, just to cut short the long story, to cut it short, I just have to come to a conclusion and say this. The journey became more painful than I ever thought of. I remember there is a time that I tried to push this guy to do a business. And he packed his suitcase, I remember, and he ran away to up country, to his parents' house. And for me, as a person who was ignorant, and I lacked wisdom, and I was also over spiritual, everything was like, God brought me a husband because that man of God prayed for me, and I cannot doubt it, this must be the one, and later God is going to change him. That was my thought even then. So even when he ran away, I was like, the enemy is attacking this marriage, and so I'm going to take time and pray and fast, and also tell God to bring him back and to heal this marriage and to establish it and to make it work. There is something that I always tell people. Please don't force God into things. Don't force God to do things because he won't. Don't start your own projects without him, and you know that they are risky, and he even gives you signs and signals that it won't work, and you go ahead and now you want to involve him. It won't work. He won't come in to help. It will still collapse. So I took time, praying and fasting, I think for 2 or 3 days, just to plead with God, please God, let this marriage work. And do you remember that dream I told you about? The dream was repeated. Not once, not twice when I was praying and fasting, asking God, please God, heal this marriage and let it work. But thrice, 3 times, I was in prayer and fasting, different times. And God repeated the same dream that he showed me even before I got into the marriage, when we were still dating. So he repeated the exact thing, and he could show me that finally this man is not with me. He will still be taken away. He's not with me. He will still not be with me finally. And I could still doubt God's message until when I started getting depressed. I fell into kind of a depression because things were very bad. The marriage is no longer working. The relatives of this man are throwing me out of the house together with my kid. I don't know where to go. I was so much also afraid of leaving the marriage because I had this thing of, now I'm a pastor. What will people say if I leave this message? And that is where we go wrong. Friend, you keep on asking, if I leave this abusive marriage, this marriage that is not working, I really feel that this thing is not of God and it won't head anywhere. But you are afraid of what will people say? Leave people alone. They have their own life to live. You have your own life to live. Like in my case, I was falling into a depression. And I have seen women who have fallen into depression because of marital relationships. Some of them have finally died. And they have left the men still surviving. What killed them? That thing of delaying. You don't want to leave. I'm not saying you leave your marriage, but can I tell you the truth? There is a marriage that will not work. And every sign and signal is telling you, this man, you cannot live with him. This woman, you cannot live with her. This woman cannot make a woman. This woman is going to be a thorn in the flesh all your days. This woman is going to throw you into a pit. This woman, or even this man, is going to drive you to the grave. We have seen that, especially nowadays. You die and you leave your kids suffering in the name of, I was trying to save a marriage. So I had that problem. I was so much afraid of the people who saw us wed. What will they say? What will also relatives say? That was my big problem. So the family of this man, they could just come together. They could plan without my knowledge. They could gather in that house. Like I remember several times they did that. Like one day it was on a Sunday morning, 9 in the morning. The parents had, no, the father, not both parents, the father had traveled all the way from up country just to come and throw me out. The two brothers had also gathered. One of the sisters, who was very terrible, she was also there. A woman also married by one of the brothers. She should be like my sister. Is she my sister-in-law? She was married into the family just like me. She was also there coming to throw me out. And because they had tried to throw me out and I had refused, even after they could throw me out, I could still run to the authorities because that house, it was not their own family built house. It is a city council house. For them that are Kenyans, they understand what I mean. So they just pay a small fee, but they can live there for years and years. And so I could rush to citizens, to town, to the city council offices, and I could report. And I could be given a letter to be told to go back. Nobody should throw you out until your husband is stable financially. So they tried the chief. They could go and even bribe the chief because one of the sisters wanted the house to be hers. And she could always keep on telling me, you people, move out of this house, especially you woman who was brought into this house. I don't want you here. Just move out of this house. And I could just wonder, now where am I going? And again, I'm leaving my husband behind because he could say nothing. He was a quiet man, saying nothing. He was very passive about everything that was going out. That was going on. And so I suffered, and I suffered because of my wrong choices. Please, before you get into a relationship, if you see red flags right from the word go, and I want to repeat this again, if you see signals, red flags right from the beginning, things are not well, they are not going right, please, just terminate it. Just terminate it. And wait on God and also pray that God will give you the right person. So I ignored a lot of things And those now are the things that were troubling me right in the marriage. I went through a lot of pain. So finally, it is me who got myself out. After I had gone through a depression, I had really grown thin. I don't have a big body, but I had really grown thin, really grown thin. I was losing memory. I had loss of memory. I remember at times I could just walk on the way and I meet with a friend. She's coming smiling. I don't know her anymore. And she's just wondering what is wrong with me. And wow, it was bad. So, there are some details that I'm going to leave out because I don't want to embarrass anyone and I don't want to talk ill of anyone. But finally, I can remember some 4 friends of mine talked to me. And I think 2 of them or 3 of them came to the house and they talked to me. In fact, 2 of them were ministers of the gospel. And 2 of them told me, if you don't move out of this house, you are going to die here. And the 2 others also still told me the same thing. And can you imagine, I was just brainwashed because I was still holding on to that prayer of that preacher who had prayed for me initially. And I was wondering, how can something that was started by God just end like that? But that man, he's a man of God and he prayed for me. He called this man in the spirit for me and he said that it was God who was leading him. So how again can the marriage fail? Even after these 4 friends of mine had talked to me and they had seen all the signs that I was falling sick and I could die there, I still took another 1 year, still refusing to move out of that marriage. That's how people die in the name of a marriage. And in Kenya, people are really dying, not just in Kenya. Everywhere, people are dying in the name of marriage. Your partner becomes a thorn in the flesh, becomes a danger, and you are not living. I remember there's a lady in Kenya who kept on praying for her marriage that was not running well. And she could always go to her pastor. And the pastor could tell her, no, don't leave that marriage. Everything will just work out eventually. So let us continue praying. And the woman persevered the beatings, and the woman endured a lot. Finally, what happened? Finally, the man chopped off her 2 hands and slashed her with a panga across the face. So today, as we talk, because that case has been in court, and judgment was made just the other day. I think it was last year, but one judgment was made. So as we talk, the woman, in the name of protecting her marriage, lost the marriage. She has no hands. She lost 2 of her hands. They were chopped off by the so-called husband. And now she even looks ugly. No man maybe would want her unless God gives her a second chance, because God can do things that are amazing. She has a big mark and stitches across her face like that. And she has no hands. Simply because she also ignored red flags, also in her marriage. So myself, I was falling into a depression. I had loss of memory. I could not remember a lot of things. But finally, as I now finish, finally, one day, finally, I decided to move out. I had put some money together because I was doing some business. And I had already taken a small shop somewhere in Eastlands. I had stocked it, and part-time I was also doing ministry. So the small shop could take care of my needs, the child's needs, and her education. And now the day came for me to move out. I just came with a hand cut. I carried my belongings. You know, in Africa, in East Africa or in Kenya, in Kiswahili, we call it mkokoteni, a handcart. I did not have money to hire a vehicle for transportation of my belongings. And again, there were not many. So I just carried some few belongings, and we just moved into that small shop that was actually not even a stone shop. It was made of iron sheets. In Kenya, we call it a kiosk. So for 6 good months, I stayed there with my child, with my baby. Remember, this was a business kiosk or a business shop that is just a temporary, structure, not a permanent one somewhere on the road. It was a place very, very dangerous and risky to stay in. But because I could not afford anything else, I had to persevere and stay in there with my kid for 6 good months. There was no water, so we could move. I could move with with jerry cans to the neighbors and borrow some water. By that time, my child had grown to about 5 years, 5 going to 5.5 years, and she could also help me. She could carry a small jerry can and move to the neighbors' houses. And she could also come with some water. And we survived like that. That's how we could shower. That's how we could cook in that small squeezed shop or kiosk. And again, there was no toilet in there. So we had to depend on the neighbors' toilets. There are times you are pressed and you are trying to knock on somebody's gate and they are unwilling to open for you. You are also making them tired. So you rush to the next gate. You are trying to knock the gate, and I'm telling you, it was hard. It was terrible. So that is how the short-lived marriage, whose red flags I had ignored, came to an end so painfully. It ended so painfully, and God gave me a new beginning. I have not still reached where God wants me to reach. I'm still on the way. But at least God released me from that toxic relationship. And I always tell people, whether you are a man or a woman, if you are in a toxic relationship that is putting you down, please, I think it is just good you just pray for God's direction, and He will give you wisdom, and just rescue yourself. If it is something that can be prayed over, you can pray for it. And God can also change your spouse if you feel the leading of God leading you to do that. Leading you to do that. So there are marriages that you can pray for, and God changes your partner and they work. And there are also marriages that you can pray for. Myself, I tried to pray and fast for that short-lived marriage, and it never worked. So there is one that can work if God is in it, because human beings also have shortcomings and no one is perfect, and God can help you and can help your spouse, and you can get along, because no marriage is also very perfect. Yeah, even in God being in your marriage, there will still at times be some disagreements, some push and pull, and you don't have to leave because you had a disagreement, maybe at night. So there is also the part of ensuring and applying wisdom in a marriage or in a relationship. But if it is one that can never work and it has reached a point of no return, just do what is necessary as God guides you. So I want to thank God. So finally, God got me out of that area, and by and by, He took me somewhere else. He got me out of the kiosk together with my baby, and somebody showed me how I could also lawfully separate myself legally, as in documents, and today I'm not chained to that man with any document that I was married. No. So I went through the process. I went to court. I did not have money to hire a lawyer, but God helped me in a way, and God gave me a judge who was very, very um, merciful. He listened to my case. He was also full of wisdom. And finally, I was completely separated and permanently separated from that man. We are not enemies. As I said, that I don't blame him. It is me who had put myself in it, in the whole situation, and so I cannot blame him. I cannot blame him. And he's not my enemy. He's not my enemy. So that is how God rescued me. It was a painful journey just because I ignored. So I come to the end of this message, and I want to believe that it has helped you and it will help someone else. So please remember to like the video. Please remember to subscribe if you've not subscribed. And please remember to share this message to someone else. Share this wisdom. Share this counseling. Share this enlightenment to someone else. And let them be talked to. So I wish you well. And until the next time, I will only wish you God's grace and God's blessings in all what you do. So I want to say shalom. May all be well with you. May all be well with you in relationships, in your marriages, together with your children. May God do you good. Until next time when we meet, may God be with you. Shalom. Shalom.